Hey everyone, Mark here. Welcome back to the Visually Stunning Movie Podcast. You've heard me say that a lot of times if you're a regular listener. But today, being International Podcast Day, I thought I'd do something a little different. Today, we celebrate all things podcast. We celebrate the amount of content. We celebrate the people that do it. We celebrate the things that have been uncovered and discovered through various podcasts. Now, the Visually Stunning Movie Podcast is not RogerEbert.com. It is not The Geek Show. It is not Joe Rogan. What it is me, who loves movies, who loves storytelling, and one or two other guys, when I get them, who like to talk about movies so that you can decide if you want to see them. Because no one wants to waste money on a movie that stinks. But what you probably don't know is that when I started this 3+ years ago, I had no idea what I'm doing. And now I know what you're thinking. You still don't have any idea what you're doing, Mark. And that is true. And it's true for two reasons. One, because it's funny. And two, because you are always learning something when you do a podcast. You never know anything. I have heard podcasters with millions of followers and listeners say that exact same thing. They're always learning something new about what they're doing. And that's true. What I want to tell you is that if I can start a podcast, anybody out there can start a podcast. I literally started it with the webcam mic because that was all I had. And we started on Google Hangouts, which was awesome, by the way. Not really, no. But we learned. We got USB mics that were a little twitchy with Windows, but we learned about that. We got better webcams for when we bothered to use them. We got better mics. We got actual software that cost money to process the audio, so we could try to make a better quality output for you guys to listen to. And while we're still working towards studio quality audio, we have a ways to go. And that is because, unlike some podcasts, this is not our day job. We do not have a studio with sound baffling and super sensitive microphones that pick up everything, and 20-track mixers and graphic equalizers with professional sound technicians. We don't have any of that. And that's okay. Because what we have, and what I had when I started it and I started trying to rope people into this, was a love of my subject matter. And that subject matter is movies. Whether you like dramas or comedies or action movies or horror movies or rom-coms. Okay, maybe not rom-coms. But no matter what kind of movie you like, whether it's the latest Star Wars with its $300 million budget, or if it's a $30,000 independent film with PVC pipe time machines, doesn't matter. Film is a great and powerful thing, and I love talking about it because film is a tool for telling stories, just like podcasts are a tool for telling you about those stories. Some people like to write them up so you can read them, and that's great. But hearing people talk about film is important in its own way, because the emotion that a reviewer brings to that discussion tells you a lot about the film, because a typed word on a page is a bland, lifeless object, no matter how flowery you make that prose. As a writer, I know that your prose can take you so far, but in the end, you have to count on the reader to interpret it. Whereas if I sit here and say, yeah, that movie was pretty good, or I go, yeah, that movie was pretty good, there's a big difference there. So that's a really long way of saying that it's important for you, the audience, to know what we, the reviewers, really mean when we talk about these movies. And we've talked about the whole gamut of them Whether they were the Star Wars high big budgets and the low budget little, we've talked about them all. We've talked about a huge, big, wide swath of films for you. And I hope that you've gotten some useful information out of it, because we don't do this for money. We do not have millions of listeners, and we do not have 85 paid sponsors and endorsements. We're guys that like to talk about movies. And everyone likes to talk about movies if they like to watch movies. So if you listen to a podcast like this one, you obviously like to watch movies. And so the talking about it, if you can't come out of a film and you can't go home to your family and no one else in the house has seen the film, you can't really talk about it. If you can't go to work and talk about it because no one likes the action movie that you saw the other night, it's hard to really complete the movie going experience, the film viewing experience. And that's, I think, a role that the podcast can play. It allows us to be your surrogate discussion buddy, if you will. We can talk about it, and you can sit there and listen and think, yes, that's exactly what I was thinking when I saw that scene, or, oh, I hadn't considered X, Y, or Z when that happened. But it helps complete the film going experience for you and for us. That's why when we do these discussions, there's a lot of listening. If you listen to us, sometimes one of us will talk for 3 or 4 minutes uninterrupted because we're trying to get ideas out. But the other person is listening so that they can respond to what's being said. And that's any communication really, but when you're discussing films and themes and stories and characters, it's important to get the complete picture. So that's what we try to give to you in this podcast. Now, you might not want to do a movie podcast. You might be an excellent woodworker. So you might want to start a YouTube channel. It's glorified podcasting. Talking about your tools, demonstrating techniques, talking about finished projects, design. You can do that. That is the wonder of the time that we live in, is that if you have an interest, there is a way for you to find someone that shares that interest and enter into a dialogue, whether it's a direct dialogue, as me and my co-host Ryan and or Jason, when he shows up, have, or whether it's an indirect conversation where you put something out or someone puts something out and you comment on it, and the discussion is engaged that way, or if it's purely an intellectual discussion where just thoughts are considered in each direction without any interaction. It's a wondrous time to be able to do that, to have a passion and be able to share that with people that share that same passion, because somebody out there does. If you're a Pez collector, I promise you there's a bunch of Pez collectors out there. We like movies. We talk about movies. If you're a car enthusiast, strap a GoPro to your car and let's go. Let's talk about cars. Let's talk about car maintenance. Let's talk about, why this design of this car was better than that design of that car, or vice versa. It's really great. And I think that is really what I want you to take away from International Podcast Day, is that podcasts cover a lot of ground. And a couple of formats, audio and video. And you can leverage those to do really great things, world-changing things, depending on what you're doing, or to just have fun and enjoy yourself and interact with people that you may or may not have been able to interact with without that. And I think that's something that is sorely lacking in society today, is that interaction. And I think podcasting allows us to bridge that and to bring that back to where it needs to be, which is at the forefront of human existence. We're all in this together and no one's getting out alive. So we might as well get along as best we can. And podcasting can help us do that. It can help us find those commonalities as opposed to those differences. Those those shared values as opposed to those mostly unimportant differences that we have and which are constantly beat into our heads by people and society, and it's just something that I think everyone needs to partake of, whether you do one or whether you listen to 10 or 20 or 100, doesn't matter. That act of entering the podcast universe, so to speak, is important. It's important, and it's rewarding in ways that you couldn't possibly imagine once you start doing it. Like I said, when I started, we started with nothing. We have slightly more than nothing now. We want to grow. We want to get better. We want to do it, but mostly we still want to talk about movies and everything that's associated with that. Be it better equipment, be it advertising, be it sponsors, be it endorsement, be it whatever. All of that serves to allow us to engage in our passion, which is film, and discussing film and discussing story. So I realize this has probably been really long and boring for you, and I apologize. But if you made it all the way to the end, it means it wasn't long and boring for you, and I hope you took something from it. So happy International Podcast Day, everyone. We'll see you next year, I hope. And until then, listen to the Visually Stunning Movie Podcast. Listen to another podcast that piques your interest on another topic. Listen to one, start one. You never know. You might do one episode and go, you know what, this is not for me. And that's cool. But you will have done it, and you will have learned something by doing it. So, till next time, I'm Mark. Thanks for listening, and unfortunately watching. Everyone have a great day.